I think for me, and this is something that my dad taught me. He passed away a couple of years ago, but he said,
Mhm.
always focus on being, strong-minded and as wise as any elder statesman, but never lose the heart of a child. And
Mhm.
so I really do embrace that. I feel like when I think about the journeys that I've been on, and I've had a chance to encounter, the things that come with trying to find purpose
Yes.
as well as um, understanding the things that will stand in the way of that purpose. You talking about racism, you talk about classism, you talk
Mhm.
about bias, you talk
Mhm.
about just building understanding, right?
Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by my man, Audley Stephenson, the Odd Man.
Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, where our goal is to inspire you to live your best audacious life ever. I'm thrilled to have you join us today and grateful that you've taken time out of your busy schedule to be a part of our journey. Together, we're going to explore what it means to embrace boldness and creativity to transform your life. Now, think of innovation and creativity and leadership as a vibrant tapestry. Just as a tapestry weaves together diverse threads to create a masterpiece, effective leadership brings together varied ideas and perspectives to foster groundbreaking solutions as well as to drive success. In today's conversation, we'll delve into empowering young adults, embracing diversity and collaboration, and the mindset shifts necessary for driving positive change. Alcott Germany II is a native of Detroit with a background in chemical engineering and a passion for education and leadership. A published author and speaker, Alcott has dedicated his career to mentoring young adults and fostering innovation. He holds a graduate degree in education and has a rich history of engaging with students and professionals. Alcott's journey from engineering to education exemplifies the power of pursuing passion and purpose. His experiences in leadership roles and mentoring young adults provide invaluable insights for those looking to foster innovation and creativity in their own lives. So now that we got you ready to go and the table's all set, let's check out our conversation with Alcott. Enjoy. Hey, Alcott, thank you for joining me here today on the Audacious Living Podcast. I appreciate you taking the time to be here, my friend.
It is an honor and a privilege, Audley. Thanks for having me on. I'm so psyched and stoked, and you have a great show, man. So
Thank you.
just
Oh,
can't wait to get going. Oh yeah, I've checked you out. I checked you out before I got
I do appreciate that. You know, I'm operating from just a place of just authenticity, wanting to
Yeah,
share and give back and help. And so to be able to engage in dialogue that helped me
yeah.
fulfill my mission is really important to me. So I got to thank you again because you helped me move the ball forward. So thank you,
Hey,
Alcott, for being here.
anytime, man. You're doing great things.
Well, I will tell you, much of our conversations are really focused on the manners in which we can help individuals, you know, live that best audacious life that we
Yep,
talk about.
yep,
I think the most important thing to understand on that quest there that we're on is that we each have our own individual paths and what we do
yep.
to get there. You know, what you did to get to where you're at is different than what I'll do, and what Sally and Tom and John and Mary, it's different for everyone. However, it's still important to recognize it's our path. And so, you very much are helping young people become leaders of tomorrow, which is, the leadership topic is a personal favorite of mine. And so I very much is excited to engage this conversation. So maybe as a starting point, I can get you to fill our audience in a little bit who you are, the work you do, and what's got you up until this point.
You know, I yeah, it's a long one, and I know we don't have that much time, but I'm gonna try to abridge this as best I can. Native Detroiter, born and raised, and have been and had the opportunity to meet a lot of amazing people. I, uh, graduated from Southfield High School, which is metropolitan Detroit, but I was born in Midtown Detroit. Hustle Hospital for all those Detroiters out there. Strange enough, though, I actually ended up going to undergrad at the University of Detroit Mercy, which was
Okay.
something I didn't know I was going to do
Okay.
at the time. But as you talked about journeys and paths,
Yep.
it led me that way. And I had an undergrad in chemical engineering. And people may say, like, wait a minute, you're a published author, you're passionate about education. How did it start? With chemical engineering, and it had very little to do with wanting to be an engineer. It really was about finding a path, uh, understanding what I was strong at, and what I enjoyed doing. I also love sports as well. So, while I was doing undergrad work, I was playing intramural basketball and won some titles there. But I really had a deep desire to always move with purpose.
Mhm.
And that's really what drove my undergrad, uh, not curriculum, but undergrad path, and being able to graduate in 4 years and come out. I still had questions. I actually graduated from undergrad in '02, which was the year after 9/11, right? And
Mhm.
so when you think about the things that were going on in society at the time, Detroit was, going through a lot of changes as well, and it was very automotive driven, as we are, and that's always been our bread and butter. And
Yep.
but I've decided to be a chemical engineer so that I wouldn't just be limited to just the discipline of automotive technologies, and it allowed me to branch out. And a few years later I moved to Albany, Georgia, which is Southwest Georgia for those who may not be familiar, about 90 minutes north of Tallahassee, Florida, and learned a lot about myself. I was 25 years old as a
Mhm.
logistic manager with over 100 people reporting to me. And I learned a lot about myself. And,
Right.
most of the folks who reported to me were old enough to be my parents and grandparents. And so in that space, it really allowed me to awaken some passions of mentorship, and always learning from people along the way,
Sure.
but mentorship in young adults. And it was during that time that I was even more intentional. In Detroit, I did it a lot as well with mentorship and young adults and education.
Hmm. Hmm.
But while I was in Albany, Georgia, I didn't have anything else to do but work and study, and I had a chance to get invited to a lot of schools. I even spoke at FAMU as well, to just share with young adults the kind of questions that I had and that I knew they still had based on my conversations with them. And
Gotcha.
that's really what led for me to get my grad degree in education, because I probably would have got my undergrad in education if I didn't, have some other unfinished business that my dad started that I wanted to conquer. Because I am the first male in my family to graduate from college,
Gotcha.
and so again, it was always about trying to answer that question of, what are these things for? What do I do with this knowledge? What is that purpose?
Yes.
And along that way, just to make a long story short, I stepped away from Procter and Gamble to start my own company that focuses on instructional design.
Okay.
And in that's when I wrote the first publication of Real World 101. Now, I'm going to skip to the end because I know you got a lot more questions to ask. This is actually the second publication of
Wow.
this book that I wrote,
Congratulations.
and to be in a position to where now it's going to be offered in multiple languages. I actually should just have the
Amazing.
Spanish translation right behind me now, that is just went live about a week ago on Amazon.
Love it.
It's exciting. And my 9 to 5, I'm still doing consulting work in the in the financial services space, but my passion is definitely public speaking, educating, and mentoring our young adults.
Oh, I love it. That's amazing. I love the idea of building on the experiences as you sort of
Yeah,
expression, building the plane as you're flying it, right? So you're
yeah,
building it as you're
exactly.
going. Like, hey, let's go here. Let's add this wing here. So
Yep.
I absolutely do love that. Why the focus on young people? Why so passionate about developing young
You know,
leaders?
oh man, thanks for that question. Because these are questions sometimes you don't ask yourself, because you're building the plane as you're flying it.
That's right.
Um, but I think for me, and this is something that my dad taught me. He passed away a couple of years ago, but he said,
Hmm.
always focus on being, strong-minded and as wise as any elder statesman, but never lose the heart of a child. And so I really do embrace that. I feel like when I think about the journeys that I've been on, and I've had a chance to encounter, the things that come with trying to find purpose,
Yes.
as well as um, understanding the things that will stand in the way of that purpose. You talking about racism, you talk about classism, you talk
Yeah.
about bias, you talk
Yeah.
about just building understanding, right? Along that way, I never felt like I was the only one going through it.
Gotcha.
And um, I always felt like there was I won't even just say a calling, but a responsibility to make things easier for the same people who
Sure.
are going through the path that I already gone down, and for those who are still going along that path now. And that's one of the things that I've been blessed to hear from. Even though this book is for young adults from a target audience standpoint,
Yep.
I get just as much feedback from adults who've read
Love it.
it. And so, to me, Audley, it's really about servant leadership and remembering what it was like to have those questions not be so readily answered or easily answered,
Yep.
and not wanting to see people go through that again is what's driven me. And that really is what, also, not to belabor the point of your question, but it has so much meat to it. When writing this book, I didn't think that I was going to write it. Like it
Right.
was,
Right.
I wrote it because of the questions that young people were asking me after we had conversation. And they were asking me, "Hey, do you have some other stuff out there?" It was funny. I had a young adult ask me, "Do I have a book?" I'm like, when I was young, I probably didn't even like reading like that.
That's
But
right.
and so that's what really inspired the write. It wasn't like, oh, okay, one day I'm going to be a published author. It went
Right.
back to building the plane as you were flying it,
Yep.
and saying, look, this is obviously a part of the purpose,
Yep.
and a part of the work. And so, yeah, I've always had an affinity for our young people, man, because I just think it's the most untapped resource
Absolutely.
on the planet. They shape our future, and
Yes.
I think that goes unnoticed until after the fact. After
Yep.
we try to, oh well, what happened to this young person? They had so much potential. Well, when we had a chance to mentor them and teach them, we didn't.
We dropped the ball. No,
Yeah,
I hear you. Well, and I just love so much the idea of helping others through just our own experiences, right? There's so
right.
much value in that. I remember hearing, I hope I don't mess it up, but I remember hearing a quote once that said, my autobiography is someone else's blueprint, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really on that premise of, look, here's
Yeah,
what I went through, here's what I did, but guess what? Here's how you can do to shorten your learning curve, and here's how, right?
exactly.
That's what we're talking about here.
100%. I have this saying that I've been going around sharing. My older brother's like, you should actually like trademark that or something. And what I would say is, experience is the best teacher, but it shouldn't be the only one.
Mm,
And and there's the thing, like we go through so much, and as people, I mean, you have like a path as well. Just think about how fruitful that information is when you're talking to someone trying to find their way versus, go sit in this classroom and take this workshop and then you'll get it.
right,
Like,
right,
everybody
right.
has different learning styles, but if you start
Yes.
speaking through experiential things and start making connections, and to me, I think that's what makes education powerful. The better you're able to establish a connection with
Hmm.
the student, the more engaged that student will be, the more
Sure.
the desire. And that's not even young people. That's anywhere.
Everyone.
Like
Yep, yep, yep. Adults, absolutely. Well, you gave an example of a leadership experience where everyone was older than you, right?
Mhm.
Like, and that actually, let's talk about that because
Yeah.
I would imagine there were some interesting things or lessons that you've learned through that experience.
And it's a lot. And you're one of the first people to ask me the question about that. And I've been on a couple of shows since over the past couple of months.
This is how we do it
And
here, man.
yeah,
That's just how we do it. We're
That's how
audacious
we
like
do
that.
it. It is. When I went down there, to Albany, Georgia, I knew
Yep.
of one person. I was a friend of mine who I met at a engineering conference in Indiana.
Mhm.
And we were both in the engineering class, but I was at UAD and she was at Purdue. And so I went down there. But yeah, to be a logistics manager and to have folks who are 2 and 3 generations ahead of me who I am in charge of leading, you know, I learned so much about myself as a person,
Right.
because the things that you had to do, of course, there was an engineer's mind mentality you had to have, and understanding logistics and supply chain and all of that. But to really have people trust you with direction, and you're the same age as their sons and
Sure. Sure.
grandsons. It was more than that. Now you have to take into account, okay, understand people. And what have I learned about people? What have
Yep.
my parents taught me about people? What has my church taught me about people? You start to add other ingredients that really brings purpose to the things you have learned in the classroom, which is, again, another reason why I wrote the book the way I wrote it, because it's more than just the content of a textbook that's going to be valuable when you're trying to make decisions for yourself and the people you love. And so, yes, to get back to your point, man, the kind of things that made me a trusted leader with that group
Yeah.
had more to do with me pouring myself into the leadership,
Mm-hmm.
and pouring and allowing myself to be challenged, allowing myself to be taught, and allowing myself to have enough confidence to say, I hear you. Now let's do it this way. What do you think?
Right.
Constantly being open to feedback,
Yep.
knowing that, okay, at the end of the day, it is my call, but you shouldn't feel like that makes you lesser of a teammate, or
Right.
lesser of a person on this team. And so to really see that up close and personal, it was the first time I had a chance to experience that up close and personal, and then to see the response when you knew you were on to something, when you knew you were building trust. Your team's going to talk to you about things that don't have to do with work. It has to
Right.
do with their
Right.
purpose. It's going to
Yes.
have to do with,
Yes.
you know what, I trust you with this. Now I'm going to share with you this.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know,
Yes.
and
Yes.
and that to me is what made coming to work that much more enjoyable,
Of
because
course.
I'm waking up on a mission. Like,
Yeah, for sure.
oh, Alcott, the line is down at 6:30 in the morning. You show up at 6:30.
Yep.
Guess how much that goes with how far that goes with that team that's on that 12-hour shift.
That's right.
Oh, I get a call at 4 a.m. You know what? I'm driving from Atlanta. That's 2.5 hours away, because I was young and having a good time. I will see y'all when I get into
See you there.
town. I am
Yep.
driving straight to the facility, and they
Wow.
see me walk in. And before you know it, and I say this a lot in my experience in Albany, I'm very passionate about that experience.
Hmm. Hmm.
But I tell you about how I knew only one person there, and then I felt like I left with an entire town embracing me.
Oh
And
man.
from the people who worked there to the restaurants, to the restaurant owners, because it wasn't a small community, smaller than Detroit, but
Sure.
it still had a decent sized community. And the things that I learned about the treating people the way people should be treated,
Sure.
and never feel, and I came up with a concept called student centered learning, like teaching through the eyes of the student,
Okay.
not feeling like you had to, a teacher doesn't have to be someone who's this big demonstrative person where I'm telling you, Audley, what you should know. I'm
Right.
sharing with you what I've learned in my journey so we can learn together.
Together.
And I really had a chance to practice that for years down there. And I have nothing but love for that site, nothing but admiration for that
Yep.
experience, because
Yep.
it made me a better person.
Well, I gotta tell you, as you're talking about that leadership experience, I'm a big fan of the topic of leadership. I love topic of leadership. In
Yeah.
fact, like
Yep.
I've been podcasting. I started my very first podcast in 2008. I wanted to talk about basketball, so I talked about basketball. My second podcast was dedicated to leadership development. So I'm
Hmm.
a big fan of that topic. And as I'm listening to your story, it reaffirms in my mind that leadership is more about who you are as an individual and less about what you know, what your title is, where your parking spot. Those things are irrelevant in a leadership framework, because so much of what you do as a leader is about the impact. And sorry, let me take that back. The positive impact that you
Positive
can
impact.
have on
Yeah.
those around you. And so your story beautifully illustrated that. And to know that you left with an experience, and like you want to know that when you leave, you've left it for the
Yep.
better, right? You've
Yeah.
left it for the better, right? And
Yeah.
so I think as a leader, when you can establish that and do those things, then you've done your job.
Yeah, it has, and I get chills when you just say that, because as you were saying it, I'm thinking through the moments that helped build me into who you see before you today, and
We're a
it
collection of experiences, right?
a
We we
collection of
we are a collection of experiences. So absolutely.
yeah, and I was able to walk away from that, from that experience, not only a better person, but leaving a place better than where I left it. There are still people there who I still cherish. I couldn't believe when I saw one of the, my 10-year wedding anniversary is actually in a couple of days. Um, and I had a member of that production team come to my wedding, and to see that, to come all the way from Albany, Georgia to my wedding. I won't forget that, Mike
Mm,
Ross. If you're out there, man, I'll never forget you for that. But it gave me, Audley, a framework that I've been building on ever since. You're talking about leadership development, and typically this is a question I get towards the end. I actually do have another project coming out, and it's all about leadership development.
oh wow,
And
awesome.
and it really does. It's all about the intangibles that I've learned that come with leadership. It's not about what you know. It's honestly, it's having an appreciation for the things you don't know, and knowing
Mm,
that when you take the time to understand, engage, trust, and translate, then you'll really have a formula that will allow you to lead in any capacity in any place. And I'm thankful for. That's why I'll always be thankful for that time, because
mm,
man, it's I can say, and then mind you, that was 2007, so it's been well over 10 plus years, right?
yep.
I can say that the style that I have built works because I was able to not only build on it but leverage it, and to see that in my tenure of leadership, and I am blessed to be able to say this, that the things that I've been able to do have not only changed businesses, but
Hmm.
it's changed people.
Got you.
It's made people come back to me and say, I am better because of your
I
leadership.
love it. I love it.
And to see people who I've led also be dominant leaders in places. I was like, there's never a time where I want anyone to feel like under my leadership, I'm going to stay your leader.
Yeah.
Like, I need
Yes.
a successor. Either you're going to occupy this seat or you're going to occupy someone else's. But
Love it.
if I'm not doing that, then I'm not doing my job. And
Love it.
I've learned also that there are a lot of people who call themselves leaders who aren't invested in that. And I can't that would go against what I when you asked me about the young people.
Yep.
When I'm talking about young people or mentoring young people, I'm trying to get them to surpass everything I've ever
Oh,
done.
sure. Sure. Absolutely.
When I see
Like,
that, then I know I've done my thing.
yeah, you want to, I think of the concept of lifting people up, and you think of an elevator, right? Like you want them on top of the elevator, like
Hmm.
as it's rising, and you're helping them rise. Like that's what I envision. And I think that's the right frame of mind to have, man. So
Yeah,
I love
yeah,
it.
yeah. I really do think of leadership as, and maybe it's because of again how I was raised. I think of leadership as ministry,
Mm,
as a form of ministry. And doesn't mean I need to convert you, to Christianity, or make you Baptist or
yep.
Methodist or whatever those other
Yep.
things, Buddhist, whatever religion. But I should be showing you the best part of myself to help you get out the best part of yourself,
Yes.
regardless of what that is. I mean, we've seen it. We don't need to, dominate this conversation with it, but we're in a society that has dominated the conversations with just tearing people down.
Sure.
Like, you
Sure.
need to stop doing this and get like me. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
that
Yeah.
is the
Here,
formula.
here, here are all the reasons why you're wrong. Right.
Right, right. And it's like,
Okay. So I
okay,
got nothing good going for me.
I ain't
Like,
got nothing good. I got here by mistake. Like, and so it's like, dang. So I can't get nothing right. And so, there's enough of that, man. There's just so much of that, and like, no one's perfect. So if that
no.
statement holds true, why do I need to be in the business of always telling you what you're not doing right? Why don't we
Right.
talk about the things that we can do right
Sure.
together? And
Yeah.
or why can't we both be right about something? Like,
Yeah,
if
yeah. Well,
that,
it's making way to other perspectives, and that's really what
right?
what needs to more of to happen. Like,
Yeah,
why can't both be true?
true.
Why is it it's all the way one way?
Right.
And I'm not trying to get into politics, but you see that in politics where it's all the
Yeah.
way just one way, and the
All
other
the
one's absolutely wrong on
right.
every box you check off, they're wrong. Like, oh,
Right. Right.
okay,
Which
okay,
leads us back to why it's so important for us to educate ourselves, because again,
hmm
not to get political, but historically speaking, the entire system of democracy was based off the fact that everybody was right.
that's right,
It's
that's right.
just about perspective. Now we've
Yes.
leaned heavily into, no, you're wrong, I'm right. And it's like,
Okay.
wow, how did we
Yeah.
get here?
Yeah, when did that happen? Oh my
Right.
God. Yeah, no, for sure. I'd love to. I think as someone with an engineering background, I think it's only fair that we talk about innovation and
Yeah.
how important that is, not only
Yes.
from the aspect of forward motion, but even
Mhm.
managing change, right? Like
Yes,
I
sir.
think change is well, it's a fundamental aspect of life. It exists,
Mhm.
and I think innovation, even innovation, creativity are two things I think are work hand in hand.
They totally work hand in hand. I couldn't have said that part better. I was going to lead with that because one thing I would say for those who have gone through engineering school, and I'm even go as far as saying being someone who is an engineer, the good ones know this. Engineering is as much an art as it is a science,
Mm,
because there's no book, and this is probably the biggest thing you got to come to understand the moment you get out of any type of engineering school. Everything in that book's already been done. So there's no manual when they're like, okay, we need you to fix this problem or build this thing. We're like, oh, okay, where's the manual? They're like, what you think? What you talking about?
is it?
That was for the test. Everything we're saying here, you got to use some of this and then come up with your own engineering prowess and using your own talent to do it
Yes.
that way. And I think that is an important lesson of life for all of us, especially when you think about innovation, technology. I think the thing that I marvel the most at, I also have certifications in software delivery,
Yep.
is that what human nature has not changed over time. Technology has.
Right.
It's our ability, our
That's it.
technology has allowed us to have a global reach that we didn't have 20
Absolutely.
and 30 years ago. But the
Yes.
behaviors of humanity have been constant. We were all doing what we're doing now without technology. We just didn't know what everybody else was doing because we couldn't see that far.
That's
And
right.
it's even more important now to appreciate what technology is allowing us to connect to. And I think that is the explosion that's happening right now, because there's a conflict in saying, wait a minute, you guys are doing it wrong. It's like, no, we've always been doing it this way.
Yep.
Now
Yep.
let's appreciate the fact that we can both see it, and you now have technologies like generative AI. But one thing that I also speak on even in my book is, when people think of the arts, or they are people who are very creative thinkers, that's innovation. Like
Sure.
when you think
Sure.
about exercising, when you think of a painting or a mural on the wall, that's not just paint. Like somebody had a vision and they were able to create it in a way that you could connect to. And so in that
Mhm.
same vein, that's how innovation works. They think
Yes.
about the problems of the world and see what's the easiest way to connect. My wife just got a new car. I'm like, this car is like mostly computer now.
Yes, it is. Well,
And
it is.
so I was like, goodness, I mean, but it's still run off mechanical components. It's
Right.
just a connection,
Right.
because there's still an issue right now we're having with a mechanical component
Yeah.
that no computer could fix. And so there's an appreciation that has to come with innovation, and saying like, it's not just about what science you claim to have a certification in. Creative behavior is something that makes us the human beings we are. And we
Mhm.
need to embrace those perspectives and have those come together in a way that we are building new solutions. I mean, in the financial services industry, you're seeing that all the time. What's a different way to build an app? Like,
Sure.
when you think about the user interface itself, that's actually not where the software developers live. They live more in what happens in the background. it's the people who
Yes.
are into user
Yes.
experience and
Yes.
tying
Yes.
themselves into
How to
people and
interface with it, right?
interface with them and asking questions. Does this solve your problem? If it doesn't, what would? That is when you the better you're able to appreciate and also be very diverse in your thinking,
Yes.
because how two African American males think about things will be different than someone from a different background, because they've learned how to fundamentally do things in accordance to their culture. It's not about having the colors of the rainbow in the room. It's about
Yes.
understanding that if we all learn different ways to eat dinner, then we're going to come up with a master chef type of dish if
Absolutely.
we all talk about it together. And so,
Absolutely.
yeah, innovation to me is huge. And it is not just about if you got a software engineer degree or some
Yep.
type of
Yep.
science degree. It's about creativity and expression and
Yep.
collaboration and trust.
Well, I think when we talk about innovation, it really starts with a way of thinking, right?
Hmm.
You're right. That's where the innovation truly starts. It's not the end product. It's
Right.
how you envision the end product, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that to me very much is a mindset
Yep.
switch or something that
Hmm.
got to adopt if you want to say be more innovative or more creative, right? And I think instincts are a big part of that. Following your gut, intuition, these are all things that are part of it. You talked about trust. I think those are all key aspects of it.
All of that is so valuable. And I think a great example for me is I'm a native Detroiter.
Mm-hmm.
You've probably heard more times than not over the past 2 or 3 years, maybe a little longer, depending on how close you are to the city, how much our city has changed, how much is that it's become a destination, how much that you're seeing, folks from, you see Google now. I mean, we were the Motor City and uh, Hitsville, USA. Like that was like
Sure.
our past that we
Yes.
still embrace as we should, right?
Yes.
But
Yes.
now it's a destination for Silicon Valley.
Mm-hmm.
You see a lot of tech companies coming in. You see a lot more tourism coming in. I would put Detroit up against any other major city, especially in the summertime, as far as things to do and things to enjoy and embrace. And that was all changed, excuse
Gotcha.
me, through mindset. That was a
Mm.
mindset shift
Yep.
of
Yep. Yep.
people who had resources and said, "Wow, there's a lot of untapped potential. There's major talent.
Yep.
There's a culture here. There's a vibe here." And the as someone who's been able to witness it, you start to see folks with resources see that opportunity,
Yes.
invest. Now there's a boom. Now everybody's flocking back, and there's a lot more to do. You'll hear different people say, "Well, we're seeing things happen in the financial districts or downtown, but we still need to expand." That's 100% true, but you got to start somewhere. And my point in saying all of that is, when you think about, we haven't talked about technology, we haven't talked about a product. I'm talking about an entire city has changed. Now, what, a few months ago, we just broke the record for most folks at the NFL draft. Like, you wouldn't think of
Mm.
having the NFL draft in Detroit. Now we had like over 175,000 people. Like, like in the course
Wow.
of a day, like we broke the record. And so I really think that mindset goes a long way
Yep.
to driving change, and that's one of the biggest examples you can see right now in the country.
Yep. Yep. So I guess on the topic of driving change, I want to sort of link that to sort of what we need to do for our young people. I know
Hmm.
education
Hmm.
was one of the areas that you touch on, but if I were to
Hmm.
say, give me the two or three top things that we can equip our young people, what would they look
Mm.
like to you?
Mm. I'm selfish. I might try to do more than that, but
Okay, let's start
but
there.
but
Let's
hey,
start
but I'm
there.
gonna start there. I'm gonna start there. One of the things I, I learned this from a young adult pastor, and he was uh, I was at a dedication. It was a pastor's anniversary, and he said, the best way to connect with our young people is to make certain that we stand between trust and grace,
Hmm.
and to, I mean, I'm sorry, truth and grace.
Okay.
And so he said sometimes we spend too much time trying to tell them the truth, and we're not putting enough time in giving them grace to embrace that truth.
Hmm.
And sometimes we focus too hard on giving them grace, and not sharing the truth of what comes with being accountable. And so I wanted to start with that metaphor, because if I didn't hear that about a month ago, my first words would have been, don't run away from the question.
Hmm.
Let young people question what it is they're seeing. Because if they are not comfortable asking it to you, they will ask it to someone else who is not as invested in their growth.
Yes.
They will
Yes.
answer that question in a way that will benefit them at the expense of your young person. And so I think if I wanted to start, ensure young adults are not running from the question. Let them ask questions about what's this for, what now, and what next. What is their, I'm trying to understand my purpose. If they say that to you, don't run from that. Embrace it, because you can start admitting that, you know what, I probably don't got my purpose figured out either. Let's figure that out together, and maybe you can put me up on something. And then the other piece I would say is, you know, bring them closer to where the work is. Don't be afraid to, we talk all the time about, um, what folks should read. And I'm a big advocate of reading and
Sure.
doing your own research. But as much as you can Google things that are right, there's just as much wrong out there too.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so bring them closer to the work. Have them talk to the folks who actually do the work, and to get them, when you say, well, they're not listening, well, ask them, what questions do you have? And let it play out, because it's not going to play out in the way you may think about it. I shared this one story, and I think it speaks to your question. I remember I was in Georgia speaking
Yep.
to some young adults at a career fair, and I had a student who was there and was like, you know what, Mr. Germany, I just want to play basketball. I said, okay. I said, I am not one to mess with your dream. I said, so let's do this. Let's play this out. I said, now, given your size, and I played, so given your size, what position would you play? And he was like, I'll probably be a point guard. I said, right. I said, you play point right now. I said, now, what's the role of the point guard? I said, you got to know the offense, you got to know the defense, you got to be the coach on the floor. You have to know when to attack, when to fall back,
Yep.
so you can get other folks in back, make
Yep.
people better, as they say now. I said, help me understand how that's any different than running a business. You have to understand your product. You have to understand what the market's demanding. You have to understand how you're going to capitalize on that market. You have to build a team that allows you to create the quality product that's better than the competition. And you have to be able to adjust when the industry adjusts.
Yeah.
Right after that, I just threw that out there.
Yep.
Audley.
Yep.
30 seconds later, he tells me, I always did want to run my own garage. I hadn't mentioned car. I hadn't mentioned anything he should do with his life. He immediately responded with that. And before we knew it, we were talking about how to run a mechanic's garage. And his friends who was around him immediately supporting him about being a basketball player. It was like, yeah, we could do this kind of work in that, because you've already do that kind of.
Wow.
And so I say that to say, and I have more stories like that, but I say it to say, like, because that student had a chance to share their perspective and share their story, the barrier of defensiveness and you're trying to just make it went away. And now you can talk. But we want to sometimes force people, and I get it, we're all guilty of it. But when you allow people to connect to the folks doing the work, not run from the question, they will open their minds up to the possibilities. And you just got to have that kind of patience.
I love that. That's a great illustration of really, well, making it relatable, planting the seed, and watching it grow. Like that's a perfect illustration of that. I think that's wonderful. I want to allow some time. You touched on your book, and so it's not necessarily it's sort of. It sort of comes out of a mentorship sort of approach, but it's not necessarily a mentorship book. Is that fair to say?
Yes. So the way I wrote this book, it's really designed to feel as if you're having a conversation. So if you were to write a book report on it, you would not be writing about me or the content. You'd be writing about yourself. And it was built for those young adults who I was talking with. And so it starts off with my preface, or I'll say my preface is called A Letter to Parents. And in that, it's actually a letter that I wrote to parents to talk through, what are the questions that young adults have? What does success even look like to an educated mind? This is the ride we're going to go on. I could have made this book 10 times longer, but I didn't want it to be long. I wanted it to be thought provoking. I
Sure.
wanted it to be something you can continuously pick up and put down. And because in that ride, we're attacking the stereotypes. What's this for? We talk about mathematics, social studies, the arts, like, but in a practical way of like, look, I understand when you're in a classroom and
Yep.
you're being told you need to make this grade so you can make something of yourself.
Right.
No, let's talk about how this lesson or this topic allows you to be the person you want to be.
Mm.
And then we get into the spaces of, okay, you told me all this, so what now? And then we you know, because that's the questions we ask. Oh, okay,
Sure.
you know what, you spit knowledge, but so now what? And then and so we get into the what now and the what next chapters, and in that, and I'll just skip to the end. um I reveal sort of the play on words for the title. Like even
Okay.
the cover has a meaning because as you can see, it looks like a notebook. And
Right.
it's more like when you're just in the classroom and you don't really want to dial in, you're just sketching on your notebook, whatever you want to write.
Hmm. Hmm.
But the title of Real World 101 was about, kind of making a little bit of fun of what we were told when we were younger. Son, I'm trying to prepare you for the real world. And
Yes.
and right, because you heard that plenty of times, and I'm
Many
like,
times.
you know, as many times as you hear that, think about it more so in this way: how is the world preparing itself for you?
Mm.
That's what you want to be able. You want to be able to do these things and understand these things so the world can get ready for what you're about
You're
to bring.
going. That's it. That's it.
And so that's the whole that's the concept behind it. That
Love
really
it.
is the spirit of it, and that's why I've been fortunate enough to have a lot of success with it. Early success with it, and for students who don't even like reading, love the book. And with this new publisher, City of Books, that I'm working with, we're now doing multiple translations. So there's going to be a French, Spanish, Mandarin,
Amazing.
Japanese, Arabic, German. I got a couple audio books coming out in different translations. So
Love it.
because the same questions are being asked around the world.
Absolutely.
And,
That's yeah. No.
and
Yeah.
so
I
that's
love
our
it.
mission. Our mission is to just push that message. And my next project is going to be a very similar tone that's going to center around leadership. I'm not going to reveal that title just yet, but it's going to sound very familiar.
We'll save that for the next dialogue. We'll save that for
Yeah.
the next one. Alcott, for listeners that want to learn more about you, connect with you directly, where could we send them?
Oh, thank you for asking. I have an Instagram account now. At first, I actually things have been picking up. I actually make certain I'm gonna connect with you. So I am on Instagram at alcottgermany2.com. So that's ALCOTTGERMANYII.com. Or on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn as well.
Okay.
Feel free to
Okay.
message me on LinkedIn. You have a great page on LinkedIn. I've seen your
Oh,
LinkedIn page.
thank you. Thank you.
and
Thank you.
and I also have a website. I have a website that's alcottgermany2.com. So
Amazing.
ALCOTT Germany2.com. You'll see pictures, places that I've been. I was actually in LA at the LA Festival of Books at USC. That went amazing. I was blessed to be a part of that, and I even had a USC student there,
Mm-hmm.
who read the book and wanted to
Mm-hmm.
talk with me later. His name was Jacob. His picture's on there. But
Love
met
it.
a lot of great people. We went through like 200 copies in like 2 hours.
Beautiful.
But they talk about the Spanish copy. There's links to purchase the book. There's a lot of places you can
Good.
get it. Barnes and Noble, Amazon, Walmart, Target, Powell's. It's everywhere, and it'll also be in brick and mortar for Target and Walmart as well. And looking forward. And there's a couple of independent places, and I'll
Okay.
post those on my site. So
Look
I
at
got
that.
some
Amazing. You're
Barbara's
pretty
bookstore in Chicago.
you're pretty good at this marketing stuff. Not bad. Not
Yeah,
bad.
I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot from my marketers. So
There you
I
go.
got a couple of bookstores in Toronto, Barbara's
Okay.
bookstore in Chicago, but there's a couple of places across the country that are now starting to bring copies inside of their brick and mortar stores.
Beautiful.
So I'm blessed and thankful for that, and we want to keep
Beautiful.
pushing that envelope.
Beautiful. Well, Alcott, listen, I've thoroughly enjoyed the time here, man. This is a great conversation. Congratulations on the work, and also congrats on the mission. I mean, I
Thank you.
think coming to the point where knowing what you're here to do is so important, because it's not a path that everyone finds. So congratulations for finding that, and all the best, my friend.
I appreciate it. It was a pleasure being on. Hopefully, this isn't the last time we talk. But I wish you the best on your show as well. And it
Thank you.
definitely was an honor and a privilege to be on this platform.
Thank you. Much appreciated, my friend. Take care.
All right, take care. Thanks.
Back we are here on the podcast, and in our conversation, Alcott emphasized the importance of mentorship and continuous learning as catalysts for personal and professional growth. By nurturing curiosity and encouraging young adults to explore various paths, we can cultivate the leaders of tomorrow who are equipped to drive meaningful change in an ever-evolving world. To connect with Alcott directly and learn more about his work, please find his contact details in the show notes. He's eager to engage with listeners and share more about his journey as well as his insights. Check out all the details are in the show notes. Because Alcott is eager to share some insights, including his latest book and his upcoming speaking engagements. Thank you for tuning into the Audacious Living Podcast. If you've enjoyed today's episodes, I ask that you consider following, subscribing, or sharing if you haven't already done so. This is how we are able to grow our community. Until next time, stay safe, be kind, show love to one another, and be audacious.
You've been listening to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by Audley Stephenson. If you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, be audacious.